So David Njoku, in kind of a surprise move over the weekend, rescinded his trade request. And while I think the request itself, after he got his fifth-year option, was kind of a head-scratcher from the beginning, from his side and on the Browns side, I think there is more of a discussion to be had on the reasons why David Njoku rescinded that trade request that bear some conversation. So let's talk about it. Real quick before this video starts, if you're new here or if you haven't done it before, please don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell. The Browns just announced that starting August 14th, yes, less than 2 weeks from now, they're going to start live streaming practices. And you know I'm going to have a review and reaction to all of those practices. So if you want to be locked into all of this content coming out during training camp, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you can get to that video the second it comes out. Now back to the video. Okay, so there are a few things to get into to understand this whole situation as it's unfolded. And the first thing we need to understand in this situation is that Drew Rosenhaus is the agent of David Njoku. Notably, he was also the agent of David Johnson, who had a trade request last year, as well as, I believe, Josh Gordon during all of his issues in Cleveland. So Drew Rosenhaus, somebody who is well known to Browns fans. Some fans don't like him, some fans do. I don't really care for him either way, but I do know what kind of an agent he is, and he's an agent that likes to use leverage. And he's a very good agent because he's sometimes able to create leverage where there is no leverage, or create a market for a player when there is no market. Look no further than Josh Gordon. After he had all his issues in Cleveland, he was still able to find him team after team after team, even though he was going through suspension after suspension after suspension. Same thing with Duke Johnson, was able to find a decent trade market for Duke Johnson. So now it comes up with David Njoku. Now the first question about this entire situation is, why in the world would David Njoku request a trade to begin with? And to me, I think this is the most obvious thing in the entire situation, quite frankly. I think David Njoku woke up after the draft, saw that Harrison Bryant was on his team on top of Austin Hooper, saw that his position would be tight end too. He's probably somebody who's slightly self-reflective at the very least and knows his flaws as a football player are blocking and catching, and realized pretty quickly that he might not be the fit that this team is looking for at tight end too. And I still contend that that is the case. And I think he saw a situation where like he could easily become the third tight end, or like a special package tight end where he just doesn't get the touches that he thinks he should be able to get paid the money that he wants to get after his rookie deal. And he and Drew Rosenhaus hit the panic button and requested a trade and did it publicly. Now, the fact that it's been rescinded is significant because I don't remember a situation like this ever happening with Cleveland Browns management. And also just normally when a player requests a trade publicly, trade's imminent. That it just happens, even when it's a player not worthy of trading, even when it's a player like Jamal Adams, who is almost too worthy of not trading. Once the request is made public, normally coaches decide that, hey, look, even though this player is good, it's not worth him messing up the locker room, so get him out of there. But this situation's different. Now, does that mean that this situation is over? Absolutely not, because I don't know what was told, and we'll get to this in a second, but I don't know what was told to David Njoku that made him pull back on his trade request. It might be some kind of guarantee, or they're going to tell him something and it gets miscommunicated, and then David Njoku feels like he was lied to, and then that whole thing kind of lingers during the season. So it's not over by any stretch of the imagination, but it's something that seems to be over at this point, and that raises my eyebrow. Now, from the outside looking in, as much as it didn't make sense for David Njoku to request a trade, it also didn't make much sense for the Cleveland Browns to extend him in his fifth-year option, which is going to guarantee him like $8-9 million after this year. So it didn't make sense that they did that. It also didn't make sense that after they did that, he requested a trade. Now, the reason I say that is the fifth-year option is a major roadblock to trading David Njoku. If he would just on his regular rookie deal, he could have been traded a lot easier. You could have got rid of him for maybe a 6th or 5th round pick like that, and it wouldn't have been anything. But the fact that he has that 5th-year option tacked onto him makes him kind of untradeable, because no team's going to trade for a tight end that's a project that if he does pan out in any way, shape, or form, you're kind of on the hook for $9 million with him. So no team wanted to take that in, and if you don't believe me, just look at the Eric Ebron situation in Detroit. A very talented guy, a guy who is more productive than David Njoku has ever been in his career so far. When he requested a trade, but he was extended that 5th-year option, he was untradeable at that point, and the Detroit Lions had to cut him. And this goes to why I think the trade request was rescinded. I think it was a combination of two things. One, reality set in with David Njoku. He looked around and realized, hey, I might not get the touches, but also there is an entire pandemic going on, and the likely solution to this whole trade request problem is me getting cut and not picked up on waivers. So maybe I want to avoid that. And the reason I say that is, quite frankly, here's the situation for David Njoku. Persist with the trade request, not report to camp, and get cut. The reason that is Browns cannot trade you because you have signed that 5th-year option. You have that 5th-year option. They won't be able to trade you. You're not productive enough to have a team feel good enough about taking that risk with the 5th-year option. So you're going to get cut. You're also not going to get picked off waivers. So now your current deal that you're on is gone for this year and next year. So now you're going to have to sign somewhere for less money for 2 years. You go from a situation where you're making 1st-round rookie wage scale for this year, and then next year you have the possibility to make $8 million, as unlikely as I think that is. That's a better situation than getting cut, clearing waivers, and getting offered like $2.5 million over 2 years, and the second year isn't even guaranteed. That's a massive pay cut for David Njoku and Drew Rosenhaus, quite frankly, because Drew Rosenhaus takes a percentage of whatever David Njoku makes. So it just doesn't make sense in reality for David Njoku to persist with this trade request, with everything going on, with all the uncertainty going on. And I don't know anybody who in this situation is going to bet on adding more uncertainty, because nobody was going to pick him off waivers and nobody was going to trade for him. So that is what I mean pretty clearly when I say that reality set in on David Njoku with this trade request, that this was not going to go his way. Nobody was going to trade for him. Nobody traded for Eric Ebron. Why would they trade for David Njoku? And again, I'm not trying to be mean about David Njoku. I'm not trying to say he's not a good player. He has a ton of potential, but so does Eric Ebron, and so did Eric Ebron at that time. Much more potential than David Njoku, and nobody bid on him. Why would they bite on David Njoku? It was not a good situation for David Njoku to be in to continue with the trade request. Also, I think Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, they might actually have a plan for David Njoku. I don't know what this plan is. I don't think it's very likely that somebody with David Njoku's skill set finds a way to get a big role in this offense, but we'll see what it is. Maybe it's splitting them out wide more. Maybe they have a special package for him. I have no idea. I'm not even going to pretend to know what the Browns are going to do with David Njoku, but maybe they convinced him that there's going to be a number of packages available for him that they want him to run, and maybe they convince him that he is not going to get abandoned in this offense. Whether that actually happens or not, I am very unsure about. And this is why I say the situation's not over. He might be under the understanding that, hey, I'm going to get these touches. And the team might be under the understanding of, hey, if you do these specific things, we'll give you those touches that you requested. But one of those two things might not happen, and then there's going to be friction, then there's going to be miscommunication, and then we're back where we started with this whole situation. So I don't think this situation is done. I hope it's done. I hope they just set reality with him and didn't give him any expectations of what he was going to get as far as touches goes, and just let him know, like, hey, dude, you're in a better financial situation if you stay on the team right now, because ultimately I think that's the most important part for both David Njoku, his representation, and the Browns as a whole, is that that's a more secure situation. So yes, David Njoku has rescinded his trade request, and that is good. The Browns now have more depth at tight end. They don't have to worry about this trade request, and more importantly, they don't have to worry about people commenting on this trade request, creating storylines on top of storylines that just don't need to exist. So it's nice to not have that situation physically lingering over the team's head like it would have. But no, I don't think this problem is over. I think it could rear its head by the middle of the season or in the beginning of the season. I don't think this situation is quite over yet because I don't have confidence in either David Njoku doing what he has to do in order to get the touches that he's going to get in this offense, or this offense creating the touches for David Njoku. I just don't see these two things happening. I think it's too dramatic of a change for both aspects of it, for the player, and for him to morph into something that he just hasn't been over the last few years, and for the offense to merge into something that it's just not designed to be. So I'm weary about that. More importantly, I think this says something about Andrew Berry, because for this trade request to get rescinded, it had to go through Drew Rosenhaus. And this means to me that Andrew Berry has a good enough reputation built up over this offseason and his many years in the league that agents kind of buy it when he shoots straight with them, because I think that's just what happened here. They shot straight with them. They said, hey, David, we're not going to cut you, but if you do request to be traded, you're going to be cut. That's the situation, and you're going to be in a more financially unstable situation there. And Drew Rosenhaus and David Njoku heard that and went, okay, and trusted that. That means that there's trust there. That means that agents generally believe that this is a competent organization, which hasn't always been the case. So that's a great thing for Andrew Berry. What this says for the Browns is that, hey, best case scenario, you have some tight end depth. Worst case scenario, you just have to cut David Njoku. I think either way, it's just better that the Browns don't have this hanging over their head. But that's my opinion. Let me know your opinion down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day and have a good night.